Well, thank you, Darrell. We'll quickly have to take you to Parliament, where Deputy Minister Designate for Energy, Andrew Ejapamensah, is appearing before Parliament's Appointments Committee.
Well, in Parliament, you're a member of the Committee on Privileges, Special Budget, and Constitutional and Parliamentary Affairs. Is that right?
That is so, Mr. Chairman. That's my committees for the 8th Parliament.
Very well. Now, if there's anything more we must know before we ask you any questions, please tell us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe that my CV spells out quite clearly my background in detail. I want the committee to adopt it. Safe to say that I'm married with 3 children. Started primary school in Takrady, Chapel Hill Preparatory School. I'm a proud Santa Clausian. I went to Adesado, did my O and A levels before I went to University of Ghana, where I also belonged to the Commonwealth Hall. Studied political science, and subsequently did another first degree in law. Proceeded to Ghana School of Law and was called to the bar in 2004. Chairman, you're interested to know that I have 2 of my mates on your committee as well.
I'll make sure they do not ask you questions.
Very well. I'm grateful, Mr. Chairman.
They will not participate in your vetting. Even though they have not disclosed their interest, I know, so I will not permit them to ask you questions. But
Chairman, then again, my professional background, work experience, started off in private practice and proceeded to the bank, did some 7 years at First Atlantic, like I indicated. Started off as assistant manager and ended up as acting head of legal division of the bank. In 2013, I left and set up a small law firm that I've been running since here in Accra.
Yes, I noticed that on page 3 of your CV, you say that 2013 to present, lead attorney and CEO. Do you have your certificate of, Mr. Speaker, permitting you to engage in office of profit?
Mr. Chairman, I do not have it here presently with me, but I indeed attended a committee of members holding office of profit, was assessed, and was duly issued with a certificate by the Speaker to practice law. That is why I have it on my CV as being the lead attorney stroke chief executive of Ministerial.
The certificate you were issued in 2013 expired in January, in 2017, or was expired in January 2021. Do you have a new one?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a new one because I'm sure you'll be aware that that committee, even though has been set up, has not held any formal meetings to make assessments of members who so desire. But in any event, Speaker, my present nomination, if duly approved, will require me to resign entirely from Mesa & Co. and all the activities that I did there over the past 4 years.
Very well. Yes.
Chairman, I usually don't do this. Did I hear you say the Committee on Profit Holding has not started its deliberation?
Not to my knowledge, Mr. Chairman.
I'm not a member, so yours is to apply. Have you applied?
Mr. Chairman, I have not. Like I said,
because I have applied, they are working, others have already made them, they've scheduled, they've cleared others already. So if you have not applied, just say you haven't applied, but don't say they've not started working.
Very well. Mr. Chairman, I stand corrected. And like I said, since the indication of my nomination by His Excellency the President, it became clear to me that I cannot continue in the role that I occupy at Mesa & Co. So it is my intention, if approved, to resign accordingly.
Mr. Chairman, my worry is that the past 6 months or 5 months, you've been working there, and you've also are a member of Parliament. So the two are not related. Whether you become a minister or not has nothing to do with you being a member of Parliament and working in that chambers.
Mr. Chairman, my response would be that obviously if His Excellency the President had not nominated me, I would still be desirous of working there and would have duly put in the application. But like I said, since the indication of my nomination came, I knew quite clearly that my continued stay there would be untenable. And so it is my intention to resign. Indeed, my resignation letters are ready. If you approve me, I would duly
maybe
send them.
just to ask whether since January you've not been working in your office.
Mr. Chairman, informally, I would not sit here and say I do not go to the office. I do go there, except that, like I said, you and I know the committees itself were constituted not too long ago before we went on recess, and at which point my nomination had been communicated to Mr. Speaker and the good people of this country.
Anyway.
Yes, the leader.
Chairman, I should thank you and join you in congratulating our colleague. In your CV, you undertook a steady visit to the Kenyan National Assembly. Is that right?
That is so, Mr. Chairman.
What did you learn from there, which can improve the parliamentary practice and procedure of the Parliament of Ghana? Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chairman, one thing that was striking was the clear powers that their Privileges Committee had as opposed to what we do have here. And so clearly that learning, of course, the functions of the Kenyan Parliament, the benefits that attaches to that office, the powers that they have in terms of their contribution to national development. They have offices in their constituencies that is fully funded by the state, that gives them the ability to influence development in their constituencies directly, as opposed to ours where everything that government does necessarily is through this assembly. And so there was a clear distinction between our parliament and the Kenyan parliament. And of course, when we went, we were directly, as members of the Privileges Committee of Ghana's parliament, engaged with that of Kenya. And one striking thing, like I said, was the powers of the committee that was different from what it is that we have here.
Chairman, thank you. Coming back home to the ministry for which you've been nominated to assist the minister as deputy minister, are you familiar with the Petroleum Revenue Management Act?
Mr. Chairman, I have procured a copy of it for myself and still studying it.
Chairman, Ghana is rated on the basis of best practice we learned from Norway, from Nigeria, to improve the governance of our petroleum revenue. You have the annual budget funding amount, you have the heritage fund, you have the stabilization fund. Having followed the operation of the law, which aspects of it would you want to see reviewed and to achieve what with it? Thank you, Chair.
Chairman, I believe that when my minister attended upon the committee, this question came up, and he was quite clear that the transparency issues that PIAC has raised would be clearly areas that he would love to see some improvements thereof. And so if you are gracious enough to approve me, I would assist my minister in ensuring that the vision that he has, which obviously is that of His Excellency the President, is carried through to improve our regime respect to our petroleum revenue.
Chairman, to the nominee, knowing that our petroleum resources are not infinite and we keep selling oil blocks, do you share the view that we should auction our oil blocks just as we do to opportunities within the telecom sector, so that you allow another transparent process of determining who gets what? You do share the view. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I believe so, that a multiplicity of options with respect to how we deal with our oil resources would be the way to go. So to that extent, yes. Safe to add that obviously because of the energy transition that is staring us in the face, where globally we're all moving towards carbon neutral economy, energy uses, clean energy. It may be useful if those options that the Honorable Minority Leader just articulated were expeditiously implemented, then we can explore our natural resources as quickly as possible so we get the benefit of same. Thank you.
Chairman, I'm just trying to tease out what the nominee's thinking is. In Ghana, you have lifeline consumers, those who just buy electricity for their daily use. And you have industry that also has use of electricity. I've heard from organized labor, the TUC and others, but more importantly from the AGI, the Association of Ghana Industry, that we need to restructure the pricing formula as to industry paying less compared to other consumers. Where do you stand on this?
Mr. Chairman, I stand with industry, and indeed my minister has indicated quite clearly the need for a review of the tariff mechanism, because we have a situation in Ghana where the tariffs are segmented in bands, so that the first band pricing is different from the second band, and etc. So, and of course, because industry consumes more, then they tend to be in the higher bands that then requires them to pay more tariffs. So if the bands are taken out and the tariffs is made neutral, for instance, just like you go to the fuel station and buy 1 gallon of petrol, cost you X amount, you buy 100 gallons, it costs you X amount times 100. That regime, when applied within the tariff in the electricity space, would then make it affordable for industry to drive employment and economic growth.
Chairman, the energy sector, there is petroleum, there is power. Metering of our oil production blocks. Government has given out a number of these blocks to, for purposes of foreign direct investment, to persons who are in the business. Now they come back and just tell the government of Ghana that we've produced this number of barrels. We don't have an opportunity to cross-check, to determine whether what they are saying is what it is on the ground as they explore and engage in production. You want to share with this committee what your ideas are in order to safeguard the interests of the state of Ghana and to ensure that we get value for money in the contracts that we've awarded by introducing some kind of metering technology to be able to do that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I have seen quite recently a video of Saudi Arabia and how they monitor their oil blocks and the quantity of oil that is produced at any point in time. They have real-time monitoring of their petroleum assets. This obviously is a technology now that there's a lot of Internet of Things that we can deploy in our oil blocks to ensure that we have real-time access to the production that takes place there. And so that is something that I believe we should explore quite strongly. Thank you.
Chairman, even though I was ending, I don't know if you took it up. I just walked in. In your CV, I see Andrew Kofi Japan Mesa. Patrick will say Messi. Are you the same person? Because the present letter of 21st April 2021 has no Kofi in it.
Mr. Chairman, indeed, I'm the same person. Mr. Chairman, it will interest you to know that I was actually christened Saint Andrew Kofi Ejapayana
Which of the
Mesa.
saints?
I was actually named after a church.
Church or Assembly of God Church?
No, the Anglican Church in Secondary.
So come back to our question. So which name should we?
Mr. Chairman, the Andrew Kofi Ejapameza is the official name that I have on record in Parliament.
Yes, honourable members. You're one of the classmates, aren't you? You're one of the classmates. So yes, very well, Honourable Counsel Best.
there will be 100% electricity coverage in Ghana. But the World Bank did a survey in 1999 and said it was 83.5%. How are you going to ensure, assisting your minister, that Ghana gets 100% coverage? Don't say America doesn't have it, because Canada has it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Indeed, universal access to electricity is actually defined at about 90% of total population. But you recall that His Excellency the President, during the State of the Nation address, which was delivered sometime in February to Parliament, indicated that his desire would be for us to attain 100% by 2024. As we speak, we are somewhere in the region of 86%. And so clearly a 14% off the mark would not be too onerous to achieve. I know that where we are now, most of the communities that have not been connected are as a result of their proximity issues to the national grid. Thankfully, there are other options of grid technology, solar, standalone units that can be deployed. I know that His Excellency the President, in the budget that was presented, indicated that options were going to be deployed. And so I would assist my minister to ensure that all the technologies that are available to ensure our brothers who are in the 40% bracket get access to electricity in fulfillment of His Excellency the President's vision. Thank you.
On behalf of Akotoja in 2004, I have instructions to tell you that you have to stick to the rules. In Akotoja 2004, we don't become NDC or MPP ministers. We become ministers for Ghana. So go there and make the group proud. Thank you.
I'm grateful. Thank you.
Another classmate. Yes, way about.
Thank you very much. Chairman, let me congratulate my brother, Kofi Ejapa-Mensah. I have 3 questions for you. The current crude market prices, Brent is trading at $71.24. WTI crude, that's about 69, almost 70. Natural gas is around $3.10. And we are still struggling with the ENI Springfield unitization program process. We've read a lot. The Minister has stated government's position to ensure that this process is completed. Can you tell the country what the real issues are and what you'll be doing to assist your minister to ensure that we derive the optimum benefit from this unitization process, in view of the fact that in the 2021 budget, we estimated a barrel of crude, I think, around $50 in the 2021 budget, so that we can get an optimum benefit from this agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman, I believe that the Springfield ENI issue is a pretty straightforward one. Our law is clear on what would warrant unitization of 2 adjoining blocks. It's to the effect that when there's some accumulation that straddles 2 contractual areas, in order for us to derive economies of scale, we ought to unitize so that only one operator can explore the resource. I believe that that's what informed the directive that was issued by the former Minister for Energy, John Peter Mewu, to Springfield and ENI to unitize, because the Afina and the Sankofa blocks tend to straddle, and there's accumulation that straddles both fields. My understanding, and I do not know the full details, is that the directives that were issued had with it some percentage of track participation in the field that inured to the benefit of Springfield as opposed to ENI. That has led to ENI objecting to that directive that the minister issued. But like I said, it's a pretty straightforward matter. Issue of unitization is not in doubt. And so I believe that some third-party assessment ought to be made to determine whether indeed the percentages that the minister issued, which is as a result of some assessment that GNPC had done, would be the way to go. And I believe that we can quickly resolve that issue and unitize the field so that Ghana can get the benefit of producing resources from that field through one operator. Thank you.
Chairman, the second question is on...
Ultimately, when they won, incorporated a company called PDS that then contracted with the government of Ghana. Mr. Chairman, the corporate law principles are quite clear that a company is separate and distinct from its shareholders, and that indeed PDS, when it was incorporated, has its own directors and secretary. I took the pains to actually do an official search before appearing before your committee, and it's clear who the directors of PDS are and who the shareholders of PDS are. Nowhere is Andrew Ejapa-Mensah found in these two categories. But like I said, it was interesting that because the documentation for the transaction had my name as director in one of the shareholders of PDS, then it became easy to associate me with PDS and create the impression as if to say I was connected some way, somehow to PDS. But the truth of the matter is that I'm not a director of PDS, nor am I a shareholder of PDS. Indeed, I'm not even a shareholder of the company that I incorporated for the client. So, question of interest in itself, Mr. Chairman, does not arise, has never arisen, because interest as opposed to fiduciary, which is what directors are, is quite clear. Interests are transferable. They are either real or incorporeal. They are either tangible or intangible. These are property. It's a legal construct that is transferable. My role as a director in TG Energy cannot, under any circumstances, be described as transferable to entail me having an interest in that transaction. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. The last question. Let's go back home to Secondary, where my old man started life. It's made up of big fishing community. You have some few challenges when it comes to youth unemployment. They love you, and they would want to hear from you what you are going to use your new offices to assist, how you are going to use your new offices to assist them get some job opportunities within the area, especially Secondary, Takrady area. They want to hear from you, your constituents. Thank you. Chairman, that's my last question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman, the issue of job and youth unemployment in Secondary, like several other constituencies in Ghana, is real. Yes, Secondary is a fishing community. We have a functional fishing harbour, Albert Bosomchisan Fishing Harbour, that provides some job opportunities for the youth there. But obviously, it's not enough to meet the aspirations of everybody, particularly the youth who are resident in Secondary. In 2016, our manifesto as a party, the New Patriotic Party, anticipated the expansion of the port from Takrady to Secondary. And obviously, that would be a game changer. An industrial port that was contemplated would obviously be a game changer for Secondary, particularly having regard to the fact that we have issues with land. Secondary is a pretty well built up constituency, and so that offers us an opportunity to then see what industry can be situated there. And so if I am, by your kind indulgence, approved, I would use my offices to liaise, as I've always done, with the Ministry of Transport. I'm glad Hassan is here. I hope that he also goes through when he meets this committee to work together to see how quickly we can progress on that to get some jobs into Secondary for the teeming youth out there. Thank you.
Honorable Zera first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning and congratulations, Honorable Nominee.
Good morning. Thank you.
Mr. Nominee, there's been some agitations recently. I think sometime last week it started by some aggrieved staff of Gridco. Would you be able to apprise this committee on what the issues are and what is causing this situation? Would it be related to the current transmission difficulties that we are facing in this country? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not aware of agitations by employees of Gridco, and so I'm not in a position to speak to that.
It was all over the media last week, and I thought that for someone who is billed for a position in that particular ministry, you would have been interested, or someone would have brought it to your attention, that there's a situation ongoing at Gridco, and it will be important that the Energy Ministry finds out what's going on, steps in, so that we can curtail any other challenges that will further compound the already difficult situation we are having with energy. My second question is about green energy. What would you say is the ministry's policy position on that, and why are we so slow as a country to embrace green energy? Thank you.
Chairman, I'll be interested in any matter that borders on the sector. If I am duly confirmed by this news on Gridco, I probably may have missed it because, in all honesty, I'm not aware. So I will follow up to see what the issues are. And of course, if you confirm me, and I have some contribution to make in resolving it, yes, by all means. With respect to clean energy, I don't think that we are necessarily slow. This is evolving technology. Yes, the advanced countries have had it for a while. They are scaling up their use of that technology. We have, as a country, because of our international obligations, the Paris Agreement enjoins us to also move from carbon fuel to clean energy. And the ministry, to my understanding, has a policy of having at least 10% of our generation mix being clean energy. And there's a clear plan that has been laid out to ensure that we attain that by 2030. And so I would assist my minister to the best of my ability to ensure that we achieve that 10% of our generation mix being renewable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And that's my last question. Every day, ordinary Ghanaians are complaining about high electricity tariffs. In fact, most people utilizing electricity for their businesses are beginning to think of other ways of doing it. Others have started using generators, which of course also add to the fuel bill of this country. What will be the ministry's plan to make electricity more affordable to Ghanaians? Thank you.
Chairman, I believe that my minister also addressed this matter when he appeared before the committee and indicated quite clearly that because of the technical and generation losses that ECG incurs, which is in the region of some 39%, they do not generate enough revenue to enable them meet their operational expense. And so the easy way out at all times would be to call for increases in electricity tariffs. That obviously impacts the consumer. And so he would lead a charge in bringing efficiency into the operations of ECG so that their technical and operation losses are reduced, so that they can then generate more revenue from their operations to fund their cost. That then would lead to the reduction in the need for increases in tariffs that would inure to the benefit of the consumer. And so I would support my minister in that pursuit so that we can bring much needed relief to all of us who are consumers of electricity. Thank you.
As a follow-up, is this initiative going to be backed by an executive policy that would be aimed at ensuring that indeed the issues of inefficiencies are dealt with? Because you see, way back 2013, when ECG appeared before the Finance Committee, the Joint Committees of Finance and Energy, they lamented the same thing. Ama Kofi Boa, was on the same part. Honorable Kwabena Donko expressed the same worry. So this time around, you sure it will be a policy to deal with it, or just a ministerial effort?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not in a position to confirm whether it will be some executive policy or ministerial, to the extent that I've not had extensive deliberations on this matter with my minister. And so if you are gracious enough to approve me, I would deliberate with him and get an indication of what his views are, and then support him in formulating whatever policy, either ministerial or executive, to ensure that those efficiencies or inefficiencies in the ECG space is significant.
What are your own views, though? Because from what honorable member is saying, and from what we all know, paying high tariffs by consumers, industry, is nothing palatable. You and I know. So let us know what your views will be.
Chairman, I agree with you. If you look at what goes into the PURC tariff setting, clearly they allow some element of inefficiency that I believe is as a result of the regulations that they operate with, which is legislation. And so I think that further action in terms of executive or ministerial may not be required. It's just the enforcement of that regulation that then leads to the efficiency that is required to ensure that whatever ECG does is consistent with the rules that is already applicable. And so that would be the path that I would go in proposing to my minister that strong implementation, enforcement of the existing rules. Because, Mr. Chairman, oftentimes our easiest solution is to pass some new rule or issue some new directive when, in fact, we have significant rules in place that we just don't enforce. And so multiplicity of rules will not necessarily lead to resolution of the matter. I think that enforcement of the existing one will be the way to go. Thank you.
Yes.
Honorable nominee, let me commend you. I'm very much aware you know the passage of the Renewable Energy Act. And then we also have a master plan backing the act. As a country, we've gone ahead to amend the act that established We Power Authority to incorporate the usage of renewable energy. Even to that end, we have still not been able to achieve. And I heard your answer to the honorable member when you said that we are not necessarily slow, but I think that we could do better. The passage of the Act, the establishment of the master plan, the amendment of the Act that established We Power Authority. We are still not moving at the pace that we are all desirous of. What, in your estimation, is the real challenge or the core of the challenge? What should we be doing as a nation to be able to up the usage of clean energy?
Chairman, I believe that even as of this material time that we're having this conversation, ECG has signed several power purchase agreements with solar, wind, wave technology, and all that. But we are confronted with a situation where we have excess capacity on our hands that we are actually paying for power that we do not consume. And so, question is, yes, you ought to improve the availability of clean energy. And on the other hand, you have a situation where you have excess capacity. Of course, with increases in industrial activity, with increases in population, I believe that it's estimated that our ECG or power consumption increased about 3% per annum. And so I believe that in the medium term, 10 years, where we will be having some additional capacity added on to meet the demands of the time, more focus should be shifted to renewable energy so that we can increase that and then slow down on the fossil fuel dependent generation plants. And I'm sure that if we do that, we would be able to balance our energy mix and achieve the targets that we've set for ourselves as a nation. Thank you.
Honorable nominee, the Germans are doing a couple of things with us, especially in the area of conversion of waste to energy. And it's largely decentralized. If you go to parts of Asante region, I'm aware of a number of interventions there. I recognize your answer when you mentioned loudly the existence of excess capacity and all that. And you also went ahead to acknowledge the importance of clean energy. In the wake of environmental challenges that we have, and the fact that we are unable to process our waste, has it crossed your mind the need for us to be able as a nation look at the tendency to convert waste into energy? Has that crossed your mind? And if it has, what would you be able to do to assist your minister achieve it?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it has. But looking through the national energy policy, I did not even find as a policy waste to energy. What I saw obviously was nuclear, coal, solar, and then the traditional fossil fuel dependent generation that we have. I'm told, and indeed last week when the Honorable Reku was here, the same question was posed to him, and he indicated that the cost that is associated with waste to energy is pretty much prohibitive, and so that's why we haven't paid too much attention to that generation potential. Obviously, with evolving technology, some of these costs come down. They tend to reduce. Indeed, a couple of weeks I saw a newspaper publication where the Zoom Lion group of companies had signed some MOU with an American company to do waste to energy. Obviously, because they manage most of our landfills, they tend to be the dominant player in the waste space. They potentially would have the raw material, which is the waste, to generate the power. And so I guess that it's an area that we need to look at. And I can assure you that if you are gracious enough to approve me, I would look at it. I must quickly add that as I said before you this morning, I do not know which sector that my minister is going to place me. And so if I happen to find myself in the power sector, then obviously that will be part of my portfolio. But if I'm not, then I may have to discuss with my colleague or whoever ends up there to see how we can broaden our scope and consider those options in our mix as well. Thank you.
Chair, Mr. Chair, this will be my last. Honorable nominee, you rarely intimated a policy direction on nuclear and coal. And if you look globally, even the most industrialized countries are gravitating away from coal and nuclear. In your opinion, do you think it is something we have to review as a country, vis-a-vis climate change and all the calls by international bodies and all the existing conventions that we have signed on as a country? Do you think we have to move away?
Mr. Chairman, on the contrary, particularly with respect to nuclear, I think that is something that we need to explore because, like you said, we're moving to clean energy, and nuclear is a relatively cleaner energy than most other power sources. And so I think that it is something that we need to pursue. I know that the ministry has made some strides in that regard. Nuclear Power Ghana has been set up. They are engaging vendor countries to sign MOUs with, and they have identified locations where they are doing some seismic studies to see its suitability. And so I believe strongly that if our industrialization agenda is to pick up, then cleaner energies that are safe, including nuclear, should be explored quite strongly. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, for the opportunity. Honorable nominee Andrew Kofi Ejapa-Mensah. Let me put on record that he is one of the colleagues I love to agree to disagree with.
Are you also one of the mates?
No, unfortunately. I just love to agree to disagree with him because he's very intellectual and doesn't take issues to heart, no matter how heated the discussion goes. He keeps an open mind, and I think many of us need that. On the subject of PDS, you have answered a couple of questions, but I would like to revisit that, especially because we have to remember how the state lost $190 million of the Millennium Challenge Corporation facility as a result of this botched deal. You, in your answer, indicated that a client requested you to incorporate a company, TG Energy Solution, which eventually became part of PDS, that got the opportunity to manage a strategic national asset such as the ECG, and later got that contract terminated on allegations of fraud. Now, I'm not a lawyer, and like Chairman asked, I wasn't part of your year group, but I'd like to know two things. When clients request lawyers to incorporate companies, do the lawyers serve, or is it permitted for them to be secretaries, directors, and lawyer at the same time, because the records will show that TG Energy Solutions actually had you as director, lawyer, and secretary, and had your office address as its business operation center. Is that what is done? And in the phase of Parliament's approval of PDS, given your familiar relationship with TG Energy Solutions, don't you think it's your involvement in Parliament's approval, the 7th Parliament's approval, amounted to a conflict of interest? Those are the two things I want to find out on this.
I would take the second aspect first. Chairman, in the first place, you can disclose an interest where one exists. But if you don't have any interest, I fail to see how you can be called upon to declare an interest. As I've indicated, the transaction that the government of Ghana executed with Power Distribution Service Ghana Limited as a legal entity, separate and distinct from its shareholders, I do not have or did not have any interest in PDS. And so there was no requirement on me to make any disclosures. Mr. Chairman, I think it's important to emphasize once again.
Chair, with your leave, when you say interests, are you saying you are not a shareholder? Is that the point you want to make?
That is so, and I was going further to explain that interest is a legal construct. It is in the nature of a property. It's transferable. Fiduciary, which is who a director is not transferable. It's not property. You are appointed at the pleasure of the owner of the entity, and you are subject to termination without recourse to any relief. That was the relationship that existed between myself and TG Energy. And so the parliamentary approval of a transaction between the government of Ghana and PDS, Chairman, would have amounted to being busybody if I had stood in the chamber to say that, Mr. Chairman or Mr. Speaker, I have an interest, because I did not. And so I cannot respectfully be accused of having been conflicted when I participated in the approval process in Parliament. The first question, which I would take now, relating to lawyers being requested, and I'm glad you used the word request. If clients request you to carry out a certain function for them, you are at liberty to either accept or decline the request. It is not unusual for lawyers to act as directors, secretaries to entities that they are engaged to incorporate. And that's what I did. With respect to the business operating, if you may.
If I may, just a quick follow-up. My question was whether that is the appropriate thing that is done. It may not be unusual, but it may be inappropriate.
Mr. Chairman, really the question of appropriateness does not arise, with all due respect, at all, because directorship of companies and company secretarial job is the field of everybody who has competencies that the owner of business desires to call upon to play that role. And so to that extent, I did not see anything wrong with it at all. Question of where they were operating from. It's important, Mr. Chairman, and if you permit me, to draw a clear distinction between registered office and place of business. It's completely different. Registered office is a requirement of law where, and of course, indeed, the place of business is also a requirement. They can be one and the same, or they can be separate from each other. Typically, lawyers, accounting firms, because of the need for you to have a place where processes can be served on the company, use lawyers' offices, accountants' firms as registered office, and it's not unusual at all. And so, yes, TG Energy was incorporated with its registered office as the law offices of Mesa and Company. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I may add, that was not their place of business. Thank you.
Well, so in my earlier preamble, I alluded to the fact that this PDS contract was terminated on grounds of alleged fraud or fraudulent misrepresentation or representation. You were very vocal in the news at the time in defense of PDS stance and disagreed in some cases with the assertion of the sector ministers, here being the deputy and the substantive minister, that PDS did not have or presented a fraudulent demand guarantee. You defended that, and you thought the minister misspoke, and the deputy minister perhaps did not get it right. Now you are being vetted, and if approved, to go to the same ministry where this transaction has not fully been dealt with yet, because as we speak, there is still litigation over some accounts that the PDS and ECG managed together. You go into that ministry. Now, based on this allegation of fraud by previous ministers, which you disagreed with as far as this transaction is concerned, and if approved, you will be working in that ministry where this transaction is still being handled. What will be, or what should we expect your attitude to be as far as this alleged fraud that resulted in the nation losing $190 million of the MCC facility is concerned?
Mr. Chairman, you are right. I disagreed strongly with the then Minister for Energy for the choice of words in describing the transaction as fraudulent, and I still disagree with him now. Because, Mr. Chairman, I read the statement that was issued by the Minister of Information, the official mouthpiece of the Republic of Ghana, the government of the Republic of Ghana. And in that statement, the Information Minister said that government had detected some material breaches and so had proceeded to suspend the transaction pending investigation. Mr. Chairman, following the investigation that was conducted by the government of Ghana that led to the termination of the transaction, nowhere in the official communication were the words fraud used. Mr. Chairman, indeed, I have read the FTI report, which was commissioned by MCC, and the issues were clear. Mr. Chairman, I further proceed to add that I'm a lawyer, and so words like fraud, which connotes grave, if you like, offenses, ought not be used loosely, or if you like, without the requisite fact or evidence to support it. And so with all the information that was available to me at the time, led me to draw the conclusion that the then Minister of Energy had misspoke, and I'm on record to have used those words in disagreement with the minister. And like I said, the basis was the official correspondence that had come from the Ministry of Information, which clearly did not suggest fraud at all. Chairman, you see, there's a lot of misconception out there, and I think that the PDS transaction, the way it ended, was unfortunate. But I do not see fraud anywhere, because here is an entity that had, as part of its contractual obligations, procured an insurance guarantee through Danwell Insurance from a company that is based in the Middle East, Al-Qut. Al-Qut issued the guarantee. The finance or transaction advisors, the lawyers on the transaction, indeed approved of the text of the guarantee, and they submitted it in satisfaction of the obligations under the contract. Subsequently, some inquiry was made by the board chairman of ECG, soliciting some documents from Al-Qut. And Al-Qut then comes and says that the official within our organization that signed the guarantee did not have requisite authority. They did not deny the existence of the guarantee or the fact that it was issued by the company. Nowhere did they deny that. But they said that the official did not have appropriate authority to sign that guarantee, and so they were not going to be held liable under that. Based on this representation from Al-Qut, the government of Ghana says, hold on a minute, if the guarantee that you procured and submitted to us...
Chairman, by way of follow-up, just, yeah, sure. You see, honorable nominee, a lawyer speaking law, and a non-lawyer using his choice of words. So I just want us to take away the technicalities. I can understand that your disagreement was based on the choice of words, that technically or by law, using these words or the phraseology that was introduced by the minister was what you disagreed with. Correct? I mean, I just want us to be on the same path. Correct?
Absolutely.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman.
So that being said, the view taken by government, therefore, was that the guarantee that had been issued by Al-Qut, which guarantee its principles denying thereof upon enhanced due diligence by ECG, that matter haven't come to the attention of government. Government was therefore to protect the public purse and terminated or took steps to resolve or whatever, correct?
Mr. Chairman, you've hit the nail right on the head.
That, what I'm saying is that you do not disagree. That's the point.
Not at all.
Yes, sure. So our colleague actually wants you to position the matter well, that you are going to the ministry. You are going to the Ministry of Energy. His understanding of that disagreement in terms of choice of words is to the effect that you disagree with the termination and you disagree with the position taken by the ministry. That is, so limit yourself within that scope. And let us understand you as members of this committee. Else it's as if indeed you were in disagreement with government, and his worry is that you are going to the ministry. Is it the case that having had that disagreement and you saying you maintain the same position, you are going into such a situation? So clarify that it was just a matter of law and use of words, and the substance you had no problem with it, if it is the case. That is all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Indeed, that was what I was coming to.
Mr. Chairman, I think since I'm here, let me clarify that. Let me clarify and state what I actually wanted. listening, no, please. Listening to the narration until the, okay, I won't use the word interruption, the guidance came, the intervention came from the Deputy Majority Leader. I get the notion that if your narration is to be believed, it would then mean that some injury and loss may have been caused to PDS in this whole transaction, for which, if you become Deputy Minister of State and they make claims on government, your advice to your minister will be that they were wrongly treated.
Not at all, Mr. Chairman. The position that the government of Ghana took is founded in law, and I support the position that the government of Ghana took by terminating the agreement, because as of completion date, the guarantee that PDS submitted was found to be worthless. The completion date being the date that the asset was transferred, the obligation was to provide a valid guarantee as of that date. Post that date, I could result from that obligation under the guarantee. So, effectively, Mr. Chairman, that guarantee was not in place, and so government was right to terminate the agreement. And I stand squarely with the government of Ghana for that decision. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chairman, material breaches, worthless demand guarantee, all sound like what they say about diplomatic language, saying the nastiest thing in the nicest way. So instead of call it fraud, you call it material breaches. You call it worthless demand guarantee. That's just by the way. But let me take you to your constituency. Yesterday, the Premier League saw a very exciting match. I recall when I was a fanatic of Real Tamale United, RTU. I am still a supporter, but no longer a fanatic. When I was a fanatic of Real Tamale United, one of the teams that used to be in the rivalry brackets of Asante Kotoko, Hearts, Olympics, RTU was Hazakes. What has been your support to that club? And what do you say to some controversy over whether they requested jerseys from you or not? And did you give them those jerseys?
Mr. Chairman, my support to Hazakes, to be honest, is very minimal. Because I'm a supporter of Second 11 Wise. And so my support to Second 11 Wise is well documented. I have provided some support to Hazakes in the past, but like I said, it's very minimal because both teams are suffering, both Wise and Hazakes. And so naturally, because my affinity to Wise is quite well known, I tend to lend the little resource that I have more to Wise than to Hazakes. I do not recall a request for jersey in the past, but if a request for a jersey had come, I'm sure that that wouldn't have been too much to do for them. And if the need still exists, you can rest assured that I will take steps to meet that need. But like I said, I do not recall that such request came to me in the past. Thank you.
Now finally, Mr. Chairman, to the sector that you are going to, and I take note of your statement earlier that you yet do not know which part of the ministry, which sector of the ministry you will be in charge of. But there is this issue of NPA and its relationship with the OMCs and the BDCs, especially with the chambers or chamber that represent these groups. and what interest the chamber serves. NPA, their members, or the consumer. This has led to even some OMCs and BDCs attempting to break away from their chambers lately. What, if you have followed, do you make of the relationship, and how can it better be enhanced to serve members of these associations and especially the consumer?
Chairman, I'm not so clear as the nature of the question, because I would have thought that chambers, which are associations of private business people who then form such chambers to be the advocates in terms of some policy direction on their behalf, would not in itself be of interest to the NPA, which is a regulator that then ensures that quality, availability of the products that the downstream operators deal in is done at, if you like, arm's length basis. But Mr. Chairman, rest assured that if there are issues that will create some instability, that will lead to unavailability of the product to the consumer, then it would be of interest to the ministry, and I can assure you that I will look into it in the event that I end up in that sector to ensure that whatever issues that they are resolved. Thank you.
I do wish you well. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, my good friend.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Honorable Nominee.
Good morning.
Exactly midday. I have based on your legal background, and this is a question that I'm sure a lot of customers of ECG want to know. For those whose gadgets get damaged because of power fluctuations, what legal advice will you give them? Typically. No, he's in the seat. He can answer.
I think it's unfair to ask him to advise his opponents, or are they opponents, or his customers, how to take legal action against him. Well, that's where he's going. I kindly ask another question, please.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, he was touted as saying that it's because of his legal background that the president nominated him for this position. So I think he's the best person to
defend.
To defend
if customers sue him, or not to advise customers how to sue him.
So at this point, customers don't know what action to take. Okay. Based on, again, your legal background, what advice did you give as a company secretary during the PDS brouhaha that caused the government lots of embarrassment, and also the compact? Again, I'm referring it to your saying that it is because of your legal background that the president has nominated you. You understand my question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do. My simple response to the question is that I was not secretary to PDS. In fact, the company secretary on record for PDS at the company's registry Chairman, if you permit me, I believe it's Menka Premo and associates. And so Chairman, yes, Mr. Menka Premo and Company are the listed company secretaries to PDS. So if they had any issues with the law. I don't know whether they were external solicitors as well, because it could be a role that potentially may be played by two different entities. And so I wouldn't know what advice that they received. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Then maybe I should have directed it to TG Energy rather, since you're company secretary for that one.
Chairman, TG Energy had no contract or engagement with the government of Ghana, so my advice was not sought with respect to the transaction on the reference. Thank you.
I find that hard to believe, but we'll take it as you say. 2 weeks ago, the Deputy Minority Leader warned against Deputy Minister Designates who were partaking in official duties. What have you done since you were nominated and to warrant such a warning across board? Just give us an idea. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I've had the benefit of visiting the minister on a number of occasions, but I've not, as the Constitution in Article 80, I believe, says that I have not entered upon the duties of my office without subscribing to the oaths that are listed thereon. So, to answer directly, I have not performed any official duty since my name was mentioned by His Excellency the President. Thank you.
That will be all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Yeah, leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I would just want to start with the importation of finished petroleum products. It is estimated that about 95% of all the finished products that we are using are imported. Are you aware of this?
Mr. Chairman, I believe so, since Tor really, which is the only refinery that we have, is not functioning optimally.
Do you know why Tor is not functioning?
Mr. Chairman, I wouldn't know the details, but my understanding is that they have some huge financial constraints, and some plant got damaged, I believe, sometime in 2017. And the insurance claim that they made to replace couldn't get them because they made some modifications to the existing plant. And so the funding was inadequate to replace what had been damaged. Thank you.
And you think this large importation augur well for our petroleum industry?
Mr. Chairman, as a country, I believe that if we are able to refine our petroleum products here and consume them, obviously be much more beneficial. Thank you.
So in your view, I mean, as a business person and going to that ministry, what advice will you give to the minister to see to the revitalization of Tor?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that ought to be a priority, and my understanding is that my minister is working assiduously in that regard to revive the fortunes of Tor, and I will support him in that enterprise. Thank you.
In your earlier answer to a question, you were talking about excess capacity, right?
That is so, Mr. Chairman.
And you alluded to the fact that we have a lot of plants that we are not using and we are paying money on.
Yes.
So what would you say are the current challenges that have led to distribution shortages that all of us are feeling the pain whilst we have excess capacity?
Chairman, I believe that about 3 weeks ago, the minister held a press briefing and apprised the good people of this country about the challenges that we're having in our transmission space, that it's seeing some work. Pokwase bulk supply point is a case in point. The Kaswa bulk supply point is also another one. And of course, the instability within the central belt, Ashanti region and Kumasi and its environs as a result of the reduction in the water level at Bui. Of course, because of the transmission work that is ongoing and because of the obsolete nature of the existing transmission infrastructure, many of the power that is produced essentially in the west and the east, that is Tema and Takrady, is not being, there's no capacity to carry it to complement what is happening in the central belt. And so that's the reason why we are having the instability in the central belt and also the programmed outages that we experienced in Accra as a result of the Pokwase and Kaswa bulk supply point projects that are being carried out.
So I just want to find out from him. I know he hasn't been there, whether he has cross-checked these facts and he's abreast with the facts as they pertain on the ground, or he's just relying on what the minister's press conference said.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm relying on what the minister indicated in his press briefing. Thank you.
But have you, because you are trying to come here, have you cross-checked whether this SS, so-called SS capacity, are SS that is available?
Mr. Chairman, yes, indeed, the fact of the matter is that our total peak demand, I think it was in February of 2021 that we experienced about 3,100 megawatts of power. Our installed capacity is in excess of 5,000, and our dependable capacity is in the region of some 4,900. So obviously, if your peak demand is 3,100 and your installed and dependable capacity is 4,900, 5,200, then the gap between the peak demand and the dependable capacity, even if you are taking a conservative position, would be excess. And so that I know as a matter of fact. Thank you.
Yeah, so you know that just as you yourself tried to clarify, the installed and dependable as against available.